Hey, sister.
Hey, sister.
Join me, Courtney Lewis,
And me, Carly Ferguson,
in our conversational podcast about everyday situations.
You can count on us to tell it to you straight with our own sisterly spin.
Consider this a phone call with your own Southern sisters as we discuss with you personal accountability, healthy relationships, managing responsibilities, and contributing to society.
Each episode will consist of straight talk and a call to action.
Your sisters are calling.
Thanks for answering. Welcome to Hey Sister. This is episode 31, Mom of All Trades. Welcome to another fantastic week during this month's theme, all about motherhood. Today, we are excited to introduce our sisterhood to Cake-N-Tyla in a conversation all about pursuing personal passions as a mother. I mean, can we do that? Are we allowed to? It seems like we're all strapped for time, and when we do get a moment of freedom, vegging out might be the only thing I'm passionate about. But all joking aside, obviously, as this podcast is an example of pursuing a personal passion for Courtney and myself, it has helped us grow, and we are learning so much as we go. We believe raising and nurturing our children is the most important role in our lives. We also believe that all have been blessed with God-given interests and talents that bless the lives of others and help build our personal self-confidence and zeal for life.
I'm excited to introduce y'all to our talented guest host today. Tyla Bearss is a professional cake decorator, Instagram influencer, a wife to a busy medical resident, and a mother to 4 children under age 9. And that includes 2 twin preschoolers. I've actually mentioned Tyla in a previous episode, episode 10, Wise Up, where we discussed the importance of trying and learning new things. And I referred to an experience attending a cake decorating workshop. It was one of Tyla's many workshops in Tucson, Arizona. When Tyla isn't taking custom orders to make incredible cakes and cookies or teaching a decorating workshop, she somehow keeps her life in harmony by still prioritizing physical, musical, and spiritual outlets, all while juggling her 4 kids and their schedules, plus supporting her husband's career pursuits. Whew, that makes me tired just saying all of that. As we considered our topic of motherhood this month, we knew that we needed an episode about how we as mothers can pursue our personal passions while not abandoning our maternal and instinctual responsibilities to be nurturers within our families. There must be a way, right? And obviously, we know nobody is perfect at this. We all have lessons to learn and different seasons of life where various people or purposes might get more attention from us. But today we want to hear some tips, tricks, and personal experiences from a mom in the throes of it as we speak. I don't want to make her feel too much pressure, but I do respect the way Tyla seems to keep all her plates spinning with a big smile on her face. So Tyla, all that said, welcome to Hey Sister.
Wow, what an introduction. Seriously, you guys, thank you for having me here. I feel like you definitely give me way too much credit, and I think you'll see that there's more reality. We always look at someone on the outside, think that they all have it together. But honestly, when you get down to the nitty gritty, you're going to see all those things on the outside may look nice and shiny, but on the inside, it might look like a bomb's going off. So thank you for having me here. I'm excited to talk about some of my passions, and I love to see that you guys are following yours with this podcast. Thanks for letting me be a part of it.
Yay. Yeah, we're so excited to learn more from you. So Tyla, could you tell us a little bit about your family and your work and hobbies outside of your life as a stay-at-home mom?
Sure. So I have 4 little kids. I still think they're little. I feel like I had babies forever, and now I just see that they're getting so much older. And my oldest is 8. She just turned 8 not too long ago. And then I have a 5-year-old son and 2 4-year-old twin girls. And some of my hobbies include I was a music major, so I've always loved and had a passion for music. I love to sing. I love to play the piano. I've always had a love and a drive for exercise. So anytime you see me around town, I'll be in a tank top and shorts from running or from doing something. Usually it's because I haven't had time to have a shower or anything yet, but you pick your battles, and shower is just usually not one of my to-do lists. That's kind of what I do. I love to sing, I love to run. And then over the last 4 years, I've started a cake decorating business, cakes, cupcakes, cake pops, cakesicles. And just within the last year, I started getting into the royal icing cookies and tackling that new obstacle. And so it's been a whirlwind and a blessing all at the same time over the last 4 years for me.
I didn't realize the cookies were a new thing, Tyla. I feel like I barely discovered you a year ago. So I just figured you've always been doing it because they look so professional. It looks like you've been doing that for 100 years.
Well, you're so sweet. I'm just slowly trying to put a few more tools in my toolbox, and have more options for my customers. But yep, just a year.
So awesome. So I want to know, how did you originally discover that you had a knack for cake decorating? It sounds like you have other hobbies, things that you've loved, like music and exercise. How did you even start cake decorating?
I'll get into it. To be honest, as I grew up, I never really had a knack for art. My handwriting is terrible. I never was great at drawing or anything artsy. I'd see cakes and I'd be like, there is no way I could do something like that, honestly. And as I got married, I always had the music thing. That was my side of the brain. I can do music. I can't really do art. And my mom even says when I started this cake business, she's like, I would have never pinned you as someone who could decorate cakes because that just wasn't me. I wasn't very artistic or creative as far as that goes. But
thanks, Mom.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Mom. This is where I can only preach that practice something that you want to learn. And if you practice it, you can do it. Honestly, anything you set your mind to. Some people say, I could never make a cake like that. I promise you, if you were to see the beginnings of my cake journey, you would know that there is hope and that you can do it. So for me, it all started with making my husband a birthday cake every year. And my husband always requested this yellow cake with chocolate frosting and M&Ms. That's what he wanted, his childhood personality coming through there. And every year I tried to make it more fancy, whether it was like different color M&Ms around the border or a scoop of M&Ms on top that I arranged in some design or something. I always wanted to try to make it different for him every year. And like I said, if I could show you the pictures of those, you would laugh because it was just a mess. My cakes were sliding everywhere. It ended up in a crumbled sheet cake one of the years. And every year I just thought, I want to get better at this. I want to give him something better than this. And I started looking up cakes on Instagram and I started seeing influencers who were making these cakes that were just so smooth and so amazing. And they weren't using fondant. And I was like, how are they doing this? This is so cool. And they make it look so easy. It can't be that hard, right, Courtney? After that class, it can't be that hard.
Even with all the materials that you prepared, which everything was like perfectly prepared. We were still in your house for 3 hours learning the art of making it smooth. So I can attest to the fact that it is hard. But yes,
right.
With the right tools and with the right knowledge, like you said, you can do anything.
It's achievable.
Yes.
So I started watching YouTube videos and YouTube tutorials, and I started going down the rabbit hole of Instagram and people and what kind of cakes they made, what kind of tools they used, what works, what doesn't work. And I said, you know what? I'm going to make a good cake. I'm going to order a cake scraper. I'm going to order an offset spatula. I'm going to learn how to do this. And honestly, I think my first cake took me 10 hours, to complete the whole thing, start to finish with little babies, because I had twins at the time and my son was barely 2 and my daughter was barely 4. And it was between nap time and between bedtime. I would go down the rabbit hole at 7 after they went to bed. And I wouldn't go to bed till 2 or 3 after trying to complete a cake. And I'd wake up super tired the next day, but excited to try something new the next day.
And during this time, your husband was in medical school, probably still too.
Right. Yep. He was in medical school. So he was gone all day. So it was kind of like my out. I couldn't go anywhere with 4 little kids with twins. It was just too hard for me to take them all somewhere. So it was like in between playing with them and nap times and shows, I was just trying to juggle learning a new skill because it was my out at the time. It was like, okay, they're going to bed. I want to do something, or I'm learning something new and hopefully I can make something beautiful. And then over time, I had a friend who went to the same church as me and she made beautiful cakes. And she was super encouraging to me. She was like, you just should make a cake and go for it. Try to sell it, throw it on Facebook Marketplace and see what happens. And I'm just thinking, there is no way, no one's going to buy a cake from me, like there's no way I could do that. But I started thinking about what she said. And honestly, at the time, my husband was in medical school and money was tight. And I was just like, it would really be nice to have some passive income and be able to pay for this and that for my kids, or be able to pay for preschool next year, or be able to afford more groceries this month, because we were super strapped. And so for me, it was like, maybe if it's even $30, maybe someone will buy something for $30. I'll just put it on Marketplace. And I said, okay, so I made a cake and I took some pictures of it and I put it on Marketplace and I said, cake decorating. I listed, if you need a cake, let me know. And on Marketplace, I feel like you can get I got crazy things. I was like, what am I doing? But I got an order. It was a double joint birthday party. So they wanted 2 cakes. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be good money. Like, okay, I'll do 2 cakes. I can make this work. So the first cake was a baseball themed cake. And the second one was a Stranger Things cake. And they wanted like an actual Demogorgon on the cake. I researched all this stuff about how to make fondant, and I was terrified. I had anxiety. I was sweating all day. Every time I thought about making these cakes, my stomach dropped. And I'm just like, what if they hate them? What if these don't work? And it was in the middle of summer in Arizona. So it was hot, and frosting was not my best friend at the time. And my husband, bless his heart, he has been such an amazing supporter through it all. He's like, you can do it. Just think, if you make this money, you can buy that new scraper that you wanted, or you can buy that bottle of sprinkles that's super expensive. You can put it back into your business and it'll grow. And every time I was just like, I just don't think I can do it. He was like, just try. And I'm so grateful for that, because there are so many times where I was just like, I'm not worthy to do this. I can't do this. This is too hard. Who am I? I'm just a mom. I don't do stuff like this. I'm not this big influencer. I've only been making cakes for a couple months. I can't do this. He was just like, just try, do the best you can. And that's all you can do. And I just said, okay. So I got through the baseball cake, and that literally took me most of the day. So around 6 p.m., I started the Stranger Things cake, and I learned the crickets so I could cut out something that looked like Stranger Things, and I could put a topper on there. And I tried to do a simple design, but that Demogorgon, I'm telling you, was my nemesis. It was like 12 a.m., 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And I'm just like, this is not working. This looks literally just like a flower. I don't know if you know what Stranger Things is.
What is a Demogorgon? What is this word you're saying?
Yeah. So it's like a monster on this show called Stranger Things.
Okay.
And it looks like this flower monster with teeth. The petals are like teeth.
Okay.
It's supposed to be like this scary monster. And I'm trying to make this out of fondant. Like the first time I've really ever done fondant.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm just going, they are going to absolutely hate this. I'm not kidding. My husband came down at like 2:30 a.m. and I'm stressing over these cakes. And I'm like, this baseball cake doesn't look super smooth. The laces on the baseball don't look perfect. And I'm a perfectionist. So I look at something, and if it's not perfect, it's not good enough. And that's not reality. You're not going to make the most perfect cake your first or second or third or even fifth time. And so for me, it was a big learning experience. At 2:30, he came down and he's like, hey, give me the fondant. Show me. He's actually better at molding fondant than I am. I've had him make some of my toppers because I was just like, I can't do this. I've tried for the last 3 hours and it just doesn't look right. And I'm not going to give him something that doesn't look right. And so finally, and I should send you the picture so you guys can see this, because it's not the prettiest cake I've ever made, but I was so proud of it. I was like, that looks pretty good. And they're probably going to buy this cake cheaper than me than they would from any other bakery or any other person, because I started low and I just kind of worked my way up. And I gave those cakes away that day, and I went away sweating and just praying that I hope they like them. I hope they taste good. I hope the black buttercream wasn't too saturated with food coloring. Please, I hope that this was okay. And I know it's something as simple as baking a cake for somebody, but this was huge for me because it was the first time I stepped out of my comfort zone and I did something new and I tried something different. And I got a text the next day. The party was a success. Thank you for your cakes. We'll be contacting you next year. And it was just like, oh my gosh, I can do something. I can do something that's hard. All those hours paid off for me because it was just like, that sucked. And after I was just like, there's no way I could do that again. But then you're just like, oh my gosh, they liked it. Okay, well, maybe I can do this. And I have had people not text back, or there was a cake, I got the wrong flavor in her cake. And she was like, hey, you got the wrong flavor. And that was in the beginning of my cake decorating when I had a couple orders and I mixed up the flavors. And I was just like, shoot, I'm so sorry. I'll make you a new cake, a free cake for your next thing or this weekend or whatever you want. I'll make it work. But it didn't come without bumps along the way. And so for me, putting yourself out there and trying something that's different and scary, over time, you'll learn that you can do hard things. I definitely learned that, especially having 4 little kids all at once. I had 4 kids in 3 years, and I had 3 kids in 1 year. And then I had my husband in school, and I started this venture, and I just kept telling myself, you can do hard things.
That's amazing. Hearing that, I feel like it's the narration to so many episodes that we all feel like we're in, where we're thinking we're crazy for doing something. We're being real nitpicky about everything that we're doing. But the motivation really is that end goal and a product that we're proud of. But we really have to like get over ourselves.
We all feel a little bit inferior.
Yeah, it's a real thing. Like when you were talking about going into it and who am I? I'm not this big influencer. I feel like that's a reason for a lot of people to not try. In our first episode, it was called Hit It, because that's how we felt even getting into this is we just need to gun it. We just need to go, because we can belabor the process of getting ready enough that we just don't do it because we don't feel confident enough. But really, you learn confidence. It's not something we start with.
Sure.
Carly has a phrase that you've told me before, and I love it. Analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
That you just overthink something that you don't ever actually get moving. So I love how you did get those wheels turning and you went for it, and you're posting it on Facebook Marketplace, which is putting yourself out there. And I think it's so sweet how your husband supported you at 2:30 in the morning. Because I mean, it's amazing that you were losing sleep as a young mom. Like you said, 4 kids in 3 years, or was it 3 and 4 or 4 and 3?
It was 4 and 3.
Holy mackerel. Like
that alone is just a lot. And you were taking the time at night. I know we're like, how do moms have passion projects? Well, you lose sleep.
Yeah, you have to pick and choose what's more worth it. For me, it was just like, I felt like I lost my identity in part of the time that I had my kids. I love my kids. That's all I ever wanted to be, was a mom, honestly, but I'm still me. I still have passions. I still want to contribute. I still want to help my family. I still want to pursue my goals. So the only way that I could do that was it's either sleep or do something you're passionate about. And that's what brought me joy at the time.
could you talk about that balance of including your kids in projects versus using your time wisely? Because I think it's good for kids to get involved and do things with their moms, but is cake decorating something you decided, I'm going to do this and help my kids help me learn to do cakes? Or you're like, no, heck no, I'm doing that when they're asleep so I can do this on my own?
Honestly, the latter, because it was like something I wanted to learn for myself. And if my kids were awake and crawling around or crying, I couldn't really do it. But growing up, I always loved to bake. Even if I wasn't good at making things look pretty, I've always loved to bake. And I've always had a passion. I think that baking brings people together. I think that food brings people together. And I think that for me, doing things in the kitchen with my kids is super rewarding for all of us. And so if it wasn't cakes, my kids would be helping me make pancakes. Or I had my daughter make cosmic brownies one time, start to finish. And I had all the stuff measured out. And I just said, just throw it in the bowl, try to crack this egg. And I think that's enough. When it comes to cake decorating, because I started it when they were so young, they know that it's been off limits. They're not allowed to touch the cake. They're not allowed to put their fingers around the cake. And if I do have leftovers, then I will offer them cake scraps. You know, if I level the cake and there's cake scraps, or if I have extra batter, I'll make a couple extra cupcakes and I'll let them use extra frosting and they can decorate it. But when it comes to decorating, they know we don't touch the cake. The only time that I could really do it is when they were sleeping, because it would be like I'd have a cake out and my son would be like, cake, cake. He'd be trying to put his fingers up, feeling for things, and I'd be moving it all around. And it then became not as joyful. This is not fun anymore because you're all screaming at me and I can't work and now I'm stressed. It was kind of like, I got to put it away. And if I want to do this, it's going to have to be the 2 or 3 hours during nap time. And my daughter would watch a show because she wasn't in school yet. So she'd watch a show, the babies would nap, and I'd work on a cake for a little bit. And then I'd put it in the fridge or the freezer. And then when they went to bed, it was like, okay, here we go again. We're going to go learn a new technique. I'm going to watch a YouTube tutorial. I'm going to learn more and do more.
Well, I think it's good that you emphasize that it's okay to keep it separate a little, to be able to say, this is mom doing this, and they know how that works and they see you enjoying that and not just playing defense and having that stress. What would you say are the lessons that they are learning from you, or you would hope that they're learning from you as you do this?
Honestly, I've talked to my daughter a little bit about it, because sometimes they'll be like, Mom, why do you always have to make a cake? And I try to explain to them, things in life don't always come easy and they don't always come for free. You know, mom and dad have to work hard. Daddy works hard at work, and we do gymnastics and we get to do piano lessons, and those things have to be paid for. And so mommy does cakes so that I can make a little little bit of extra money to pay for these things. And as they get older, they understand it a little bit more. And I say, if you want to learn something, you have to work hard. Things don't come easy. When we started teaching our kids how to ride a bike, that was frustrating for Camry. She didn't want to keep going, but I said, I promise as you keep doing it, you'll get better at it. And then it'll be fun and you'll enjoy it. I think stuff like that, my kids can hopefully look at me and say, my mom, I hope that they look back and they say, my mom worked on a lot of cakes, but she did it because she loved us and she wanted us to be able to do things that we wanted to do. Because otherwise, with my husband in medical school, they wouldn't be able to do the things that they are doing. And for me, I think being able to be involved in extracurricular activities is important. So that's one way that I could make that work. Otherwise, we'd just be at home. And I don't think being stagnant is good for them either. I hope that down the road, they can realize that. I'm not saying that it's always been perfect. And I'm not saying that I've always found a balance, because that is not true. There's been times where I think I've taken on too many orders and I have put my work ahead of some of my children's needs. They've been crying in the background, or I've been so stressed that I'm like to my husband, you just need to deal with it because I have to get this order out. I have to do this. And in reality, I don't have to. I chose to. And then I have to step back sometimes and say, how much is too much? As they get older, I find myself like, okay, they're easier to give an iPad to. So now I can do it during the day. So I don't have to stay up as late at night. But is that really a good balance? You know what I mean? What sacrifices are you willing to make for your family, and either working with cakes and doing cakes for your family, or stepping back and saying, I can only do one cake a week. I can only do one cake a month. I can only do one order a month. And I've had to tell a lot of people no, because I have to know my limits.
That's great. And I love that analogy of riding a bike. We've heard that all our lives, right? Like, it's like riding a bike.
Sure.
But really, that's not so easy. And especially when you consider the qualities that you need in order to ride a bike, it's not exactly just the skill itself. It's perseverance and patience. Mm-hmm. It's understanding the balance. And when you do face obstacles, how to go around them, how to navigate. So much of it is really learning as you go. So I love that, because that's really what we want our kids to know, is not exactly what we're doing. It's how we're doing it and
why we're doing it, really.
Yeah, totally.
I've listened to a few podcasts recently and read some quotes that are about balance, because I think that idea is interesting as we've been preparing for this podcast and thinking about this topic of sometimes you feel a little bit of guilt. Like, I hear the phrase mom guilt, and I'll be completely honest, I don't feel like I have mom guilt. That's not something that I feel like I suffer with my kids and how I mom them. But sometimes I feel personal guilt for pursuing some of my passions too much. So I don't know, maybe that falls in the mom guilt. Is that mom guilt?
That does fall under mom guilt.
Oh, dang.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, you're here with all of us.
I know she said that before to me. She's like, I don't know why people feel mom guilt. And I'm like, okay.
Well, I guess I just feel like, oh, so you had too much tablet time today. Tomorrow we'll even it out. Or, oh, you didn't potty train early enough, but you know what? You can say your letters. I don't know. I really just justify my kids' behavior.
That's probably healthier.
I don't know. Or maybe it's not healthy, but that's what I'm saying is this idea of balance and thinking that things need to always be equal is an overwhelming thought. Because if I give an equal amount of time to my kids that I give to, say, podcasting, or an equal amount of time to my husband that's equal to the same amount of time that I give to my HOA board position, that's not good. Even though that might be balanced, it's not right. And so I've heard this phrase harmony that's used lately. That's a trending term, is that we want harmony in our lives. We don't want balance in our lives, because things won't always be balanced.
Sure.
It's going to be harmonious. We're looking for harmony between the things that we do. And I like that phrase, because if you suffer with mom guilt, like apparently I do, about giving too much time to areas that you might feel a little bit of guilt for, think about the harmony of your life. And does it feel like your life's in harmony? You're a musical person, Tyla, so I think you might understand the term harmony better than the rest of us. But do things work together to be harmonious in your life? And if it's not, what's out of tune?
Absolutely. I love that analogy. And I think that sometimes our expectations are unrealistic for what we can and can't balance at one time. And I like how you put it, because you're not going to give the devoted amount of time to all the same things in your life. You kind of have to pick and choose where you need to devote your time as a mom and what's most important to make that balance and that harmony in your own home.
You've talked about the lessons that you are wanting your kids to learn from your pursuits. Have there been any other personal lessons that you've learned in this pursuit of making cakes?
Yeah, this cake venture for me, I feel like has been a huge lesson in the fact that you can learn a skill. I will preach all day that I never thought that I could make beautiful cakes like these cake decorators, and I could never grow a page or I could never become a photographer. And I'm here to tell you that if you put your time and energy into learning a trait or a skill, that you can master it. You have to do your research. I feel like for me, it's been really rewarding to get faster at making a cake or get better at writing on a cake, because that was terrifying for me. I literally bought a projector because I can't write. So I had to trace, or I had to print out something and I had to sketch it into the cake. And then I had to trace over my sketching, and it would take me hours to put in the work. And for me, when I look at my page, it's kind of a reflection of all the hours that I've spent learning a new skill. And I feel like that is validation to me that we can do things that we don't think we're capable of. And I just think it's whatever you pursue.
My question is, how do you keep the motivation when at the beginning it feels like you're having failures? That's how I feel, and how a lot of people feel. Do you look ahead? Do you have like an expectation, or are you saying, I want to get to this point down the road of having so many followers?
Right. Yeah, no, I totally know what you're saying. For me, it was just starting small. And I think with cake decorating, you can go from beginner to just incredible cakes that you look at, and there's just so much to learn. And I feel like this is a hobby and skill that I'm still learning 4 years down the road. I'm still learning new techniques, new textures, new ways of doing things. I feel like in the beginning, it was just trying to master, quote, perfection. I want to get smooth cake and sharp edges. That's all I wanted to accomplish. And it did take long. Sometimes it took me 2 hours to get those smooth sides and sharp edges, but then it was like, oh, that's a victory. Okay, now I've learned this. Okay, now that part's getting easier. Now I want to learn borders. So I'm going to work on some borders, and I'm going to try this border this time. And social media was a big drive for me because I was like, I'm going to start a page. And it's so hard, I think, as moms. And this is something that I think over the years I've had to learn, and even can be a downfall, is that we tend to compare ourselves to these people who've been doing it for forever on Instagram, or people who have been practicing a lot longer than I have. I hate to say who are better or who are more talented or more skilled, but honestly, they've been doing it longer and they've been practicing longer. So they're going to be better. I don't think it's just this natural gift. You don't wake up and just know how to decorate a cake or know how to do something. They've been doing it longer, and they've been practicing, and they've been putting time and effort into their page. And so if I'd get discouraged because it was like, gosh, I only have 100 followers. I'm posting and I'm trying to be engaging. Is my stuff not good enough? Are my pictures not pretty enough? What do I need to do? Well, what are things that attract me to this person's page? Well, their pictures are really bright. Okay, well, my kitchen's really dark. How can I do that? I'm going to make a few cakes, and I'm going to invest in a camera, and I'm going to learn how to get better lighting and start taking pretty pictures of these cakes, because they're pretty, but you can't really tell because my photos are dark. So then I started investing in that, and I get discouraged again because it was just like, well, shoot, I really liked this cake, but gosh, I look at one similar online and she did such a better job. And it's just, you got to be happy and celebrate the small victories that you have along the way, because there's always going to be someone better than you at something. My husband always says, when's it going to be good enough? Because again, I am a perfectionist to a fault sometimes, and he's just like, when are you going to be happy? You just spent 10 hours on that cake. It looks so good. When is that going to be good enough? And I think that's where, as a woman and as a mom, I can get down the rabbit hole, and I'm not so happy for my kids to see this side of me, because it was just always like, oh, the lines weren't perfect, and oh, this part of the cake wasn't perfect. Do you think they'll look at that? Do you think they'll judge that when people are like, that's incredible? How'd you do that? Most people, they're not looking at cakes all day. So they're not going to look at my cake and be like, oh my gosh, that edge is not straight. And oh my gosh, that color is not completely correct. So for me, it was just finding small and simple things that I could do and just trying to master the next step. And then learning, this Instagrammer has so many posts and they've been doing it for so long. How do they do that? So as I started upping my photography skills and learning new cake skills and posting better pictures and getting in with the social groups and commenting and posting, my page started to slowly grow. And that was also motivation. It was like, oh my gosh, I've got 50 more followers today. Okay, I'll try again. I'll make another cake and I'll do a design that I've been wanting to work on. And so it just kind of grew and spiraled from there as I learned photography and I learned social media, because I didn't really know much about Instagram, or I didn't really know much about how to post pictures pictures and videos. And it was just learning as I go and accepting that this is where I'm at. If you want to get to here, you got to spend so many hours and you'll get there, but be patient with yourself in the interim because things take time and give yourself a little grace.
I love that. I think it's easy to get really discouraged when we have all of the other pretty pictures in front of us, but that's a really good lesson in just taking the time to celebrate those small wins and also choosing to shoot small or aim small, miss small.
Yeah, exactly. Start with a small goal and work your way up one step at a time.
Yeah.
I also love, and I think we should touch on the fact that what you're pursuing in this is an awesome passion, but it's also a source of income for you. So I really like that aspect of it too, Tyla. And I think sometimes we need to remember that as we pursue things, you're spending this much time and you're developing a skill because it also benefits your family financially. So I think if anybody's listening to this and they're like, oh, I would love to spend that much time doing a hobby on my own. I think it's also a valid point to bring up that this amount of time that you're spending perfecting skills is for financial benefit for your family.
Absolutely. And that's something that has been a blessing for me because as your page grows on Instagram, you can get money and you can get companies reaching out and sending you products and you can get sponsorships. And that was a goal of mine as my page started to grow. It was like, I really want to do this, but I can't afford all the trendy sprinkles and the trendy combs. So I would make cakes and really spend hours and hours trying to grow my page so that I could get sponsors and so I could afford the things that it costs to make cakes. Because if you aren't a cake decorator, you don't really know what it takes or what goes into a cake. It can be expensive. All the tools that can make these really gourmet, fancy cakes be what they are. And initially, like I said, we didn't have a lot of money. So it was like anything that I did, I spent hours just to get $40 that I could buy a cake scraper, or I could buy some things for tools that I could learn to make my cakes better. So I had to invest in my company. And then after that, it started to pay off because I had all the tools. And once I had all the knowledge and I'd been practicing for so long, I could start offering classes because I'd be able to have an excess of money that I could pay for extra cake stands and extra scrapers so that I could teach a class and then have more financially, which has literally been our saving grace because, like I said, I couldn't put my kids in the things they have. All the extra things that we did through medical school were from cake decorating and from my small business. It's definitely been beneficial for our family and kind of a need. And there were nights I was tired of all the hours. I'm just like, I am working so hard. I am not getting sleep. I'm dealing with my kids. I'm trying to be a mom and I'm trying to stay in shape and I'm trying to make cakes. And it got so exhausting sometimes to have to grind. But ultimately, us as parents, we want to give our kids the best life that we can. So there are things that we have to sacrifice, whether it's sleep or whether it's going out with friends or being able to go do things because I'm working, and there's a lot of things that I'd rather be going and doing with my kids than spending hours on someone's cookies or hours on someone's cakes. And sometimes I tell Jeremiah, I'm tired. I don't want to do it. I don't want to. But at the end of the day, it's like, I'm going to do what I need to do to give my kids a better life. And so it's opened my eyes to those working moms and working parents out there that sometimes we can't always choose what we need to do for our family. You just do the best you can and you try to give your kids the best life you can. And if that means having to work a little bit more so that they can pursue their passions and at the end of the day have skills for their life, then I'm going to do it. And hopefully they'll look back and not say, my mom was so busy all the time. They'll say, my mom worked really hard so that I could have a bike or so that I could have Christmas because all my funds go towards our Christmas every year because we don't make anything in medical school. So it was like, if I wanted to give them Christmas and I wanted to give them a bike, then guess what? I'm going to do 3 classes. I'm going to not sleep the whole month of December and I'm going to provide Christmas for my family. It's what we do as parents.
And I think that goes back to when we talked about harmony. There are times where, like you said, the grind, it feels like discord. No, things aren't really in the same key that we want. But we're really working for that resolve later. And it's a whole piece. It's a whole musical piece. And there are going to be times where things are more in harmony. And there are times where we're learning and figuring it out, but really knowing what that payout or payoff is going to be.
Right.
And having that be part of our goal is the why behind, like you said earlier.
Absolutely.
I had a moment recently with my kids where I was feeling like I haven't done too many fun things with my younger two kids like I used to do with my older two kids. I feel like when my older two were 2 and 3 years old, every single day it was like, we're going to go to the museum this day, the zoo this day. I was super organized about which days we do which activities. We had a play date at our house once a week. We would go to the park once a week. We did all those things and I was really great at it, I feel like. Whereas with my younger two, who are now 2 and 4, I'm a little bit less inclined to go do so many things, maybe because the older two exhausted me, but it's also because, like we've said, we're doing this podcast right now. So my time is a little bit more devoted to this. I'm leaning a little bit more into the podcast than I am to some of the extra things that were a little bit more fluffy and they're not as critical for my kids' development. And as I vacuumed my car the other day, my daughter goes, Mom, vacuum me up. So I took an extra few minutes and I just took the vacuum and I put it on their shirts, or I'd put the vacuum at the car wash on my hair and it sucked my hair. And my almost 2-year-old son thought it was the funniest thing he'd ever seen. And I just thought, I'm spending an extra 5 minutes doing something I need to do. We need to vacuum our car out. And I try and do that every week. When I do my Sam's Club pickup, I stop at the car wash because it's on the way. They have the free vacuums and wash the car. But I've never taken the time to show my kids that we can make this a fun adventure. And It was perfect because I thought, do I spend enough time letting them do fun things or involving them when we get out and do activities? Do I let them experience life? And just to let them feel the suction of a really hardcore vacuum on their clothes, or see that, oh, mommy just vacuumed up a fork, like a legit silverware fork that somebody left in my car. Oh, well, everybody just got a good laugh out of it because I'm like, we're one fork short. But kids will adapt. And I think it is so important for us to pursue passions and make the time intentional. If we're doing our time, I love how you say that with your time, Tyla, you spend your time when your kids are napping or using their tablet time. That's when you pursue your business. That's when you do your personal passions. But you're an intentional mom the rest of the time. When you're like, hey, we're going to go to gymnastics. You get to pursue your passions. I get to cheer you on. Whatever your kids are doing, it's awesome that you get to be all in whatever you're doing. I just love how many hats I don't actually love how many hats moms wear because sometimes it is a lot, but I love that we are gifted this opportunity as women to be intentional with how we use our time, and that we can spend some time to really evaluate what God-given gifts do I have, or what gifts would I like to develop, and trust that our loving Father will help you in those pursuits. And I love that you've been a huge example of that, Tyla. So I'm wondering, do you have a call to action for our sisters? You've given us so many great nuggets that I want to sit with today. What call to action do you have for our sisterhood?
I think the biggest thing that I can say is that, like you said, we all have so many hats. We all have talents to share with everybody. And we all have something that sets us apart. We all were given gifts. And I think the biggest call to action as a challenge is to put yourself out there and do something that you're interested in doing, or try something new. I can use so many different things as an example, but like, I love music and I love to sing. And after I had kids, I really didn't get the opportunity to do it. And my biggest thing are my church gigs where I get to sing in sacrament meeting and that kind of thing. But I put myself out there by going to the director and saying, hey, I sing. If you ever need a musical number, let me know. That can be really hard for some people to just go ask, because we all have something that might touch someone or might help someone, or gosh, I really want to learn how to run a mile. Well, guess what? Just find a time, set aside the time and go walk a mile or go jog and just try something new. Put your stuff on Facebook Marketplace and just see what happens. I just think we as moms get so wrapped up in our kids and what they need. And we sometimes forget that we have needs as well. And we also have talents and hobbies and things that can enrich other people's lives and our kids' lives by them seeing us pursue those things, seeing what brings us joy, because they say a happy wife, a happy life. And I feel like when I'm doing things that are bringing me joy, I'm a better mom at home. So I just say, put yourself out there, try something new. Even if you're nervous to do it, it doesn't hurt to try. And if you don't succeed the first time, just keep trying, because I promise, practice makes perfect. Well, no, practice makes progress is what I'll say, because it's never always going to be perfect, but practice definitely makes progress. And the more you see that you can do, the more you're willing to do more.
Yeah. And I just want to add to that. We need to support other moms who are putting themselves out there.
100%. I 100% agree with that. I think with social media, it's a big thing when people will be like, that looks so awesome. You did such a good job on that cake, or encouraging someone. I wouldn't have started my Instagram page if it weren't for that other cake lady who said, Tyla, just start a page. I did. You know what? If it gets 100 followers, if it gets 25 followers, who cares? Just try it. Try something new. And she gave me that encouragement. I was like, maybe I can do it. I feel like there's enough space for everyone on social media. Anywhere, there's enough space for everyone to succeed in their goals and their talents. Don't think there's already someone who's doing that. Well, guess what? Maybe someone needs you doing it, is what I think.
And also, if somebody's doing it, it doesn't mean that they don't need someone's high five for them, because they're probably learning as they go too. It's not just the case that like, wow, they already have that kind of confidence. They're asking the director for a piece.
I also 100% agree, because I feel like that is something that will stop people from putting themselves out there because of what people will think of them. Sometimes it's hard for women to put themselves out there because they might be perceived as, oh, she thinks she's hot stuff type of thing, doing all these things or asking to sing. I can totally see that. And maybe to some people it is too much. I'm sure some people might look at me and be like, she does cake, she does all these things, but you don't see the reality of my life. You don't see my trials, and I don't see other people's. So I think that it's kind of hard. You can't really judge people for the things they do because you don't see the inside of it. At the end of the day, as moms, I feel like we're just trying to do the best that we can. And so I think, like Carly was saying, we should celebrate and be encouraging to moms, because that might be just what they need. Maybe it took a lot of courage for them to ask to sing in church or something, because that's what they're passionate about. And maybe that chorister might be like, oh, she thinks she's all that she wants to sing in church. But that took a lot of courage for her to ask that. So I think we just need to give people a little bit of a break and just say, good for her. You go, girl.
Tyla, speaking of supporting other women, I love following you online on Instagram. Could you share with our sisters where they can find you?
Yeah, my page on Instagram is called Cake-N-Tyla. So it's cake, just the letter N, and Tyla. And I'm on Facebook as Cake-N-Tyla as well.
I love to see all of your cake making and cookie decorating and cupcake decorating advice. You really do such a great job there. And I will be sure to link Tyla's Instagram and Facebook links in the show notes. So if you're listening, go check out the show notes. Now, Tyla, can you share maybe 3 of your favorite baking tips? That I know you share a lot of these on your Instagram, but give us a couple examples of things that you love to do when you're baking or decorating cakes.
Sure. As a mom, we don't have a lot of time, I feel like. So it's nice to break up cake making. And so you can really bake your cakes or cupcakes ahead of time, a week in advance or a few days in advance. And what I do is I'll bake my cake layers and then I'll wrap them in saran wrap and put them in the freezer. And a firm cake is a lot easier to decorate than those soft layers, because you can get crumbs and they can wobble all over the place. And honestly, if you have a frozen cake, then as you put on your frosting, it'll seep in that moisture and keep your cake super moist. So I would say a frozen cake is good. When making your buttercream, if you want a really smooth buttercream, you want to make sure to sift your powdered sugar, and that will really help with a nice smooth buttercream.
I want to testify of that sifting. I have never owned a sifter, which one I bought was a metal grated super fine mesh. Is that a sifter?
Just like a sieve. Yeah.
Okay. So I've never owned one. Here I've been married for almost 13 years and I've never owned one of those sifters. I feel like I'm a grown up now, but I bought one and I sifted my powdered sugar and I was like, oh my goodness, this makes the finest powder ever. I thought powdered sugar, I didn't know that it could really get finer than what came in the bag. So I love that you gave that tip.
Right. It does make a difference, especially when you're first starting, just really getting that buttercream at a good consistency, because that will help you with your cakes. Another tip, a lot of the time I hear that people, when they bake their cakes, they get big domey cakes and they're hard to stack. So I always preach baking strips. You can buy them on Amazon for super cheap. They're like $8 for 3 baking strips, and you just get them wet with ice cold water and put them around your baking tins, or you can make them with saturated, really cold paper towels, fold it up in aluminum foil, and you can wrap them around your cake tins. And when you put it in the oven, I don't know science, I'm a music major, but it causes your layers to bake completely evenly from the cold on the outside, and it bakes more evenly so that when you take out your cake layers, they're completely flat and you don't have to level them. So that's something that's been a time saver for me, and it saves cake because your cake is more full if you're not cutting the whole top off one, or, it's super dense and that kind of thing.
Perfect. I love all of those. Those are some of the same tips you gave gave in the workshop that I attended with you. So I am grateful that you shared those again for our sisterhood. We have really enjoyed having you with us today, Tyla, and to our sisterhood. We're glad y'all joined our call as always. We hope y'all have a wonderful week, and we'll talk to y'all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye. He wants to talk too. Give him the mic.
That's what he really wanted to do. He just wanted to come out here and be a part of my passion project, huh?
Yeah.
Well, if anybody hears the baby in the background, now he's part of the podcast. So, hey, brother.
Yeah.